Alright guys, well, welcome back to RampantLionReviews again. For this one we are doing my second festival video. So I'm here in Saison, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in the kind of eastern part of Copenhagen, the industrial area, and we're going to go and have a little look at the first Mikkeller sour beer celebration, and I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. There's some great breweries here today, and I'm looking forward to trying some unusual sour beers. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Alright, so here you can see is the entrance to it. It actually seems like it's quite a quiet festival, this, which I was surprised at. But as you can see, this Reflslåen area is it's almost pretty desolate, to be honest. It's pretty interesting. So if I'm getting my directions correctly, Mikkeller Baghaven is over there. This is an old kind of building that's been converted into a big skate park or something like this. But yeah, we're at the far east of Copenhagen, and this looks as if it's been an old shipwork facility, which is kind of cool. So yeah, really interesting here, this. And as is typical with Scandinavia and the continent, you can see here are all the old bikeways, but there you can see the old dry dock, which is pretty cool. That's the word I was looking for. But let's go in and have a little look at some of the beers. So yeah, when you come in, here it is. I have to say, this is really quite a nice little venue. So let's go and have a little look at some of the beers. There's my dad chilling next to the old car, which is pretty cool. Let's go for it, guys. Right guys, so here's tasting number one then. Since this is a Mikkeller festival, I thought, you know, let's go with a Mikkeller beer. So this one is the Stensbeer from Baghaven. It comes in at 8.1%. Obviously it's a sour beer, this, but apparently the Sten cherries, or Stenbeer, are a Danish cherry variety that are from quite locally here to Copenhagen. So I thought this was a good one to kick off with, since, you know, Mikkeller Festival, we're in Copenhagen, why not? But as you can see, lovely kind of dark, sort of dark violet-y type colour. Very kind of pink looking head on that. Hazy, as you'd expect. Aroma wise, you know, lovely. The thing you always get with a Mikkeller Baghaven beers are these lovely kind of woody aromas. It's you know, it's got a lovely kind of, it's got quite a bit of vanilla, you know, and the wood almost comes across as being a little bit, you know, sort of dried and grassy in some ways. That's quite interesting. But of course you've got those lovely dark cherry notes. It comes across, the sourness is obviously coming from the cherries, but I think you can get a few more kind of, you can definitely get a little bit more of a sort of kind of blackcurranty, blackberry note out of this one. It's got a little bit of juiciness kind of hiding underneath there. Maybe a wee hint of vanilla or something like that as well, but a lovely aroma. So let's have a taste of this one then. This one is the Stenbeer, coming in at 8.1% from Mikkeller Baghaven. Skål. Oh yeah. It's really nice. It's really, I've always liked the way that the Mikkeller beers, the Mikkeller Baghaven guys do their sours, because it comes in and it's got a nice sharp impact, but the way it smooths out in a very kind of juicy way, and then you start to get the woodiness out of it later. Middle of your palate is definitely that lovely kind of smooth, oaky, woody quality. Moving further forward to that, you've got a little bit of a kind of vanilla note. The rest of your palate, it dries out a wee bit later on. Around the edge of your palate, you've got, you know, little hints of grassiness and things like that, but there's really not very much hop quality to this beer at all. It's all about the woodiness and the fruits, and like I say, the fruitiness comes out at the front of the palate and it gets more juicy. It comes in sharp and sour, and it gets more juicy the further you go into the flavour. These little glasses are very dinky as well. It's kind of nice, but look at that. Nicely presented, I have to say. So yeah, as I say, quite sharp cherries in the beginning. It smoothens out and you get the cherry notes have a lovely juiciness to them later on. But I think there's wee hints of, you know, almost blackberry and blackcurranty type flavours in this beer as well. But overall, this is a lovely sour beer. I do need to try and review some more beers. I need to try and review some more Baghaven things. But this one is another lovely example. Mouthfeel, you know, mid-bodied, carbonation is very smooth. To me, this leans towards the oily side of things. I do like my sours to be a little bit more oily, to be honest with you. And for me, the sours are all about the balance, and this one has it really well. Very, very smooth, a little bit of sweetness, as I say, almost some vanilla flavours at the front of the palate. It almost becomes a little touch creamy in the aftertaste, but lovely sharp sourness, juicy fruits, and overall just a really nice beer to kick off with. Let's see what else we can find. Let's go. Right guys, beer number 2 then. So something a little bit unusual. We're going to go to Argentina for this to visit Buckwheat Perdidos, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this is the Bock coming in at 6.1% ABV, if I remember correctly. First ever craft beer rather, that I've tried from Argentina, so I think this will be pretty awesome. I mean, I know that the South American craft beer scene is kicking off really, but to be able to try something from Argentina I think is pretty damn cool. So let's have a go at this one then. So as you can see, lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. I think it looks, looking at the camera, it looks a little bit more kind of ambery on the camera, but trust me, this is pale golden straw, which is the exact colour that you would expect for a Gose. Remember, a Gose tends to be a nice light kind of salty coloured beer. Bock means it will have a few more biscuity flavours and stuff in it, but a beautiful looking beer, lovely kind of cream ivory coloured head. Aroma, it's very light. I mean, a little bit bready, you can smell the salt coming out of it, some nice grassy notes in there. It smells, this one to me, if I was blind smelling this, I might not guess that this is a sour other than for the fact that it has the salt in it. So I mean, this one, it's got a lovely smoothness to it. Yeah, lovely smooth white bready notes. A wee bit of a biscuity sweetness in there as well. The grassy notes, you know, those typical almost German noble hoppy notes, but I'm guessing with how big Argentina is, they've probably got their own hops from down there. A lot of German influence in Argentina though in the day, so maybe it is, the hops are somewhat related to Hallertau and Tettnanger, who knows. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how it goes. The Bock, 6.1% from Buckwheat Perdidos, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Skål, salud. First craft beer from Argentina. Awesome. That's really nice. Straight away, you get that nice little citric kick out of it, and it smooths out beautifully. And as I said in the last video, for me with sour beers, it's all about how the beer smooths out. Middle of your palate is pretty much completely bready. As you come further forward, there's a little bit of a woody quality to it. You've also got a little bit of you know, the saltiness. I think the saltiness comes out more in the aftertaste. Hoppy side of things, a little bit of that light earthiness you'd expect of kind of German hops, or maybe Argentine hops in this case. You get a little bit of that earthiness there, and as you come further forward you get some floral elements out of it. Round the very front curve of the palate it's a little bit more grassy, then behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where your fruity notes are coming out. So for me, this is very straight up. This is straight in with the sort of lemony, tart, citricy notes, and it's also got the kind of it's got a little bit of that kind of grassy, citrusy thing in there. There's maybe a wee bit of a kind of lemony, sort of apricot-y note or something in there too. But this is a lovely Gose beer, this. If you get the chance, have a go at it and try it. I mean, this is a brewery that I definitely want to see if I can get a hold of them. It'd be awesome to be able to review some Argentine things for you on the channel. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, fairly light bodied. This one has got a nice level of crispness to it, you know, that typical I say German smoothness because it's a German style beer if you like, but it's definitely got what you expect from the Gose. Nice level of crispness. Overall the mouth feels quite wet but crisp at the same time. Smoothness in the malt base, a little bit of that saltiness at the end. Wee touch of biscuity sweetness in the middle of the palate if you pay attention. And you've also, so yeah, like I was saying, nice crisp mouthfeel on this one. Everything you'd expect in the Gose, nice and fresh. Let's leave it at that for this one. The Bock from Buckwheat Perdidos. Probably the Argentines are laughing at me for that pronunciation, but I'll probably review the Tripel that they have as well, so you'll see that coming up soon. Skål, salud. Right guys, beer number 3 then. So for this one, we are going to go to the Netherlands, to Alkmaar, and we're trying a beer from Zomerdiek, if I've pronounced that correctly. This one is the Raspberry Rage. And I forgot to look at what percentage this is. I think it was like 6 point something. Most of the beers here tend to be 6 point something. But as always with Dutch tastings, big shout out to the Dutch Beer Collective, Dutch Beer Geek, Beer Geek Holland, Thomas Open, and also Beer Maniac as well. Big shout out to you guys. Definitely cool to try another Dutch beer. So yeah, let's see how we got on with this one. As you would expect from a raspberry sour, lovely kind of bright reddish colour. The head on this one's faded away. This beer was poured out the bottle rather than from tap actually, which I think some of the stands are doing that, but most of them seem to have their beers going through the tap machines. But yeah, let's have a look at the aroma of this one and see how we get on. Yeah, this one comes across, it's really well balanced because it's got some lovely juiciness to the raspberries, but it's also got a little bit of sharpness as well, which is lovely. It's really nice, that. Some lovely woody undertones to it, quite vanilla. This is actually one of the sweeter raspberry sours that I can think of that I've come across. But yeah, this is the aroma. This is lovely. I mean, I love raspberries in Scotland. A lot of our desserts are based on raspberries, like Cranachan, for example. You know, so raspberry sours are something that I always really enjoy. So yeah, this one is absolutely lovely. The aroma here is great. You know, if you get the chance to try this, you know, for me, this is one of the aromas that just ticks all the boxes. So yeah, let's have a taste and see how we go. So the Raspberry Rage from Zomerbeek in Alkmaar in the Netherlands. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, proost. That's lovely. It comes in, the sourness on this is really just very, it's really quite puckering on the beginning, but then the whole tongue just becomes really wet actually. This has definitely got one of the bigger impacts, I think, from the other sour beers that I've had. And it actually gets more sour again in the aftertaste. That's really interesting. It's one of these ones that strikes me as being quite straightforward, but it's just really well done. And I mean, the thing with sours, the lower alcohol sours are not the most kind of complex things. It's just all about getting the flavours to match well together, and this one does that very well. Lovely kind of smooth, quite bready note to this one. You can get that underneath. It's got some woody character in that as well, which is what you expect from the sour beer because of course they're aged in oak. You've got a little bit of vanilla coming out of it too. Other than that, not too much to report on the malt base. It's all about how these flavours are smooth and blend together, which is great. So with this one, for me, around the edge of your palate, there is a little bit of grassiness, there is a little touch of hoppy character to this one. Behind the front curve of the tongue, you've got that juicy sharpness, which is great. As I say, it comes in with quite a little bit of impact. Then it just rounds out and becomes a lot smoother in things, which is really nice. I really like how that goes together. I really like this one actually. So you know, big thumbs up to the guys at pardon me, Zomerbeek for this. It's got a few kind of subtle flavours of, like, you know, maybe fig and a little bit of a kind of candied strawberry or something. But you know, when it's called Raspberry Rage, it is all about the raspberry. Mouthfeel wise, I find this one quite light bodied. It gets a little bit more oily later on in the flavour, but it's really nice how it's got a little bit of wetness later on, but very smooth. Very low bitterness to this one, but there is a little bit of hoppiness around the edge of the palate, and overall just a really solid raspberry sour. So you know, if I come across them again, and I'm sure maybe through the Dutch Beer Collective I will, Zomerbeek from Alkmaar in the northern part of the Netherlands. Lovely beer. Big shout out to the guys at the Dutch Beer Collective once again. Slange, skål, proost. Let's see what we can find more. Right guys, beer number 4 then. So for this one, we're going to go to Fonte Flora, who are from North Carolina over in America, and we're having a taste of their strawberry sumac kvass, which comes in at 2.8%. Now, I think this is the first kvass that I've ever tasted. A kvass, essentially, it comes from the Eastern European countries, the Slavic countries, and it's basically a drink that's fermented using breads, basically, which is quite cool. So yeah, this should be really interesting. I don't know too much about these, to be honest, and that was the main reason why I picked this one, because I thought it would be interesting. But 2.8% strawberry sumac kvass. Let's see how we go. I think Harry, actually, over at Blue Nose Beer Reviews, he has been playing around with kvasses and stuff and seems to quite enjoy them. So check out his channel and maybe you'll learn a little bit more about kvasses there. But yeah, let's have a look at this one then. So as you can see with this, It's a lovely kind of bright goldeny hazy colour. I thought Kvassies actually had a little bit more kind of fruity notes to them, but if it's strawberries, strawberries aren't really going to dye the beer in the same way that blackberries or raspberries and cherries and stuff are. So the colour isn't too surprising. But yeah, aroma wise, oh, that's really interesting. It almost smells a little bit like milkshakey or something. If you think of like strawberry milk powder that you would, like Nesquik strawberry powder that you would add into your milk to make strawberry milk, that's what this really reminds me of. Very bready, lots of vanilla for me, or something that's very similar to vanilla, like milkshake sugar, something like that. Wee bit of woodiness. I don't really get much of the kind of rye bread in there. It seems a little bit smooth to be rye bread for me. It's more like a kind of white bready quality. But it's definitely, the juicy strawberries come out there really nicely. They're very almost candied in the way that they come across as well. So yeah, it's got a lovely little bit of grassiness to it as well. But if I remember rightly, Kvass doesn't have hops and stuff in it. So that's the other interesting thing. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then. The strawberry sumac Kvass from Fonte Flora in North Carolina in America. My first ever Kvass. Skull. That's actually pretty nice. First thing I'm noticing about it is that it's very wet in its mouthfeel. It's a very light, crisp, drinkable thing, this, you know. At 2.8%, it's almost kind of like the sort of folk soul things that you could get in Sweden. I'm surprised there's not more Swedish breweries actually having a go at Kvassies and putting them in the supermarkets. That would be an interesting thing, but this is quite nice actually. It's not quite as strong and powerful as the other sour beers that are available around the festival, but it's still something interesting and quite different. So the middle of your palate, you can feel that bready base. The sort of milkshakey type sugars that are sitting on top of that, they sit there too. Definitely has an almost lactosey type quality to it, but the juicy strawberries kind of sit in there on top of that as well, which is it's really nice. And yeah, I mean, it's got a little bit of grassiness around the edge of the tongue. As I say, not the most complex of things, but in terms of drinkability, that is really nice actually. You could get a big bottle of that and share it amongst your friends. It's almost like a table beer, to be honest. It reminds me a little bit of some of the table beers, although obviously those are Belgian and, you know, a bit thicker in the yeasty notes and stuff. But yeah, this is really cool actually. I like it. Yeah, mouthfeel wise, very light bodied, nice and crisp. No real bitterness to this, quite juicy. The sourness is just, it's quite, it's got a little bit of an impact to it, but after that it really smooths out very, very nicely. So yeah, that's this one, the Strawberry Sumac Kvass from Fonte Flora in North Carolina, America. Skull. Right guys, next tasting then. So this one comes to you from Jester King in Texas. These guys are a brewery that I've wanted to try for a hell of a long time, and I've just never been able to get a hold of any of their stuff. So the one that I have for you now is the Bière de la Noire, and it is a grape sour coming in at 6.4% ABV. So, you know, as you would expect from a grape sour, it's got a lovely kind of reddish tint to it. It's a lovely kind of almost ruby colour, to be honest. I like that. Of course, if you use white grapes, you get a different colour. I'm saying it's what you'd expect from a grapey beer. But you know, it looks very nice. The head on this one is a very light creamy colour, almost ivory, to be honest, but that's faded away to be very kind of thin and foamy. But let's have a look at the aroma of this one and see how we get on. Oh yeah, the grapes in this one smell almost a little bit sort of spicy in a way. The woody notes in this are really, really nice. It's got a little bit of a kind of grainy sweetness to it as well, which is very interesting. I wonder what wood they've used in this. It's almost a little bit spicy in the way that you would expect from... It reminds me in some ways of the kind of spice that you get in Japanese sake when you age it in cedar barrels. There's something like that going on in this beer. There's just a little bit of spiciness to the woody notes. The typical vanilla notes that you're going to get when it's barrel aged as well, there's definitely some of that in there. I think there's a wee teeny bit of a biscuity sweetness as well, which is nice. I really like that actually. The aroma of this is lovely. You get a really nice juicy grapey note out of this. Maybe if you've watched some of my Japanese reviews, you'll know that I'm a sucker for Japanese grape juice. Anything that's grape flavoured in Japan and grape flavoured generally, I tend to really enjoy. So that was the main reason why I picked this one. So yeah, a little bit of grassy note in there. The sourness doesn't come across too much in the aroma compared to other ones, but lovely and smooth. Let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Bière de la Noire from Jester King in Texas over in America. I think this will be really nice. Skull. Oh yeah, this has something just a little bit more kind of rusticy to it compared to some of the other ones. Yeah, the woody notes, as I say, just a little bit more spicy. Again, that blankets the middle of your tongue. A little bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate. This one actually does have a little bit more hoppy character for me. A little bit of floral note at the front corner of the palate too. Some grassiness around the front edge of the tongue. And the grapes come in, they've got quite a little bit of impact to them. But yeah, lovely kind of wet juiciness to this. But as I say, you've just got the woodiness in this really has a little bit of a kind of bright, spicy character for me. That's the thing that really highlights this beer for me. It's definitely got that kind of West Coast American sourness to it, even though Texas isn't on the West Coast. Cascade Brewing, you know, they describe this one as an American sour ale, and the American ones are, you know, almost very puckering. This one isn't as puckering as what I've had from Cascade, but it's still really very nice. This is quite a simple beer, but it just has flavours that I like, and I think that, for me, that's the interesting thing about sour beers. As I've said, it's all about how the flavours blend together and the smoothness you can get out of them. If you can get a nice smooth sour beer, you're definitely onto a winner. So yeah, mouthfeel quite light and crisp for me. Gets a little bit wetter the further into the aftertaste you go. A little bit sharp in its sourness in the beginning, smooths out nicely in the end, juicy fruitiness in there. It's got a few subtle flavours of like figs and things like that underneath the grapes, but overall a really nice and very smooth sour, this one. A little bit more of a kind of spicy note to the wood, which I think is the interesting point here. But yeah, this one was the Bière de la Noire from Jester King in Texas over in America. Let's go, let's see what else we can find. Right guys, so on to the next one then. This one comes from Belgium. This is the Moondance from Buckwheat, and it is an apricot sour, apparently a blend of a 1-year-old beer and a 2-year-old beer. So I think this will be really quite nice. I think I was talking to the guy, and by what he was telling me, this is a brewery that I definitely need to look up when I get down to Belgium and the Netherlands at some point. This will be really interesting. So, as you can see, lovely, again, pale golden straw colour with this one. It looks a little bit more ambery on the camera, of course. Creamy coloured head, this one, just fading away to be a very thin foamy layer. But you know, overall, not surprising in terms of colour for an apricot sour. You would expect these to be a little bit lighter. Aroma. Oh, this is really nostalgic for me. It really reminds me of the yogurts, the Munch Bunch yogurts that my mum used to put in my lunchbox when I was a wee boy going to school. The apricot ones, the yellow ones. That's really nice. So yeah, the apricot has a nice little kind of tangy note to it, which is interesting. I've never really picked that up with apricot before, but if it's a sour beer, you are going to get that. Underneath, of course, you've got the white bready notes. Again, this is one that has that sort of almost milkshakey kind of sugariness to me. It's got a little bit of that vanilla, the woodiness is coming out, of course, but to me, this one strikes me as being mainly bready and almost a little bit like lactosey yogurty in its kind of aroma, to be honest. There's a little bit of grassiness to this one, a few floral elements as well. Yeah, it's really nice how that goes together. I like the aroma of this, and of course it's the apricots and the sort of smoothness of the apricots that take centre stage in the aroma. So yeah, let's have a look at this one, the Moondance 2019 edition from Buckwheat in Belgium. Slange, Ska, Proust and Santé for Belgium. That's a really smooth drinker. That's the first thing that strikes me with this, a very smooth beer. yeah, the malty side of this one in the middle of your palate, very bready and smooth. Lovely woody elements to this one. It's a little bit more vanilla-like at the front of the palate. It's got some nice kind of earthy notes at the back, just very light though. It's almost like a German kind of noble hoppy note, but then as I've told you, the Belgian hops, they're a little bit between the English hops and the German hops. But I mean, if it's a blend of two old beers, like a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, the hoppy character is going to drop out a lot. That's if you even put hops in them. Sometimes with sour beers you don't put hops in them. But yeah, for me there's a little bit of grassiness around the front of the palate and behind the front curve of the tongue. As I say, that's where the fruitiness comes out. And on the edge of the palate, you're getting those nice smooth apricotty notes. The more citricy sour notes are coming out behind the front curve of the tongue. So yeah, this one, again, it's one of these beers that has a lovely smoothness to it. That's awesome. I mean, I certainly need to look up this brewery when I get down to visit the Dutch Beer Collective, see if we can go across into Belgium and find some of these. I mean, some of these Belgian style beers, Bofkont, some of these Belgian sours are amazing. There's Boon, Lindenens and a few of the other well-known Belgian breweries here, so we will need to see if we can review some of those. I was going for mainly the more kind of new craft beers and stuff like this just now. We will make sure we review some from the more traditional breweries, of course. But this is a really nice, very smooth sour. Mouthfeel wise, it's I'd say this is a more mid-bodied one. To me, this feels a little bit thicker. Carbonation is very smooth on this. It's not, like I say, more smooth than crisp overall in its mouthfeel. Sourness on this is one of the lower ones. It's got a little bit of sourness, but it's mainly about how it smooths out later on. Bit of juicy fruitiness in there as well. It's got a few like papayas and stuff. You know, there's some of those kind of fruity notes in there as well, which is nice. But you've also got just a little bit of that grassy freshness around the edge of the tongue too. Lovely beer this, the Moondance 2019 from Bofkont in Belgium. Let's go on to the next one. Right guys, next tasting then. So for this one, we're going to go to Kansas City, Missouri over in America, and this one comes to you from Boulevard Brewing Company. This one is the Amphora, comes in at 10.7% ABV, and it's quite an interesting one this. So it uses a little bit of lactobacillus, a little bit of Brettanomyces, and it also uses a little bit of natural yeast from the grapes that were put into it. So this one is a grape sour, and this one came as a recommendation from Simon Friend, who is a long-term subscriber of my friend Craig at Kent Beer Reviews. He's here at the festival, had a really nice time with him, and we've been sitting talking about different sour beers. I'll get him in for a cheers just at the end. So yeah, this beer is this one comes in at 10.7% ABV. As you can see, it's a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. So it's obviously white grapes they're using in this one. The Vignoles grapes or something like that. I forget the exact name of these grapes, but as I say, 10.7%, lovely pale golden straw colour, white coloured head. Aroma wise, you know, it's really quite nice. I mean, lovely kind of little bit of oaky note in there. Not so much vanilla on this one. The kind of vinous qualities of the green grapes, they really dominate the aroma here. It's maybe got a little tiny bit of a biscuity sweetness to it as well, and that's, you know, this is a very straight up like white green grape type sour. The aroma of this one for me, you can smell that it's a little bit boozy, but again, it's not overly complex. The woodiness in this is really nice. Oaky, little bit kind of spicy, a little bit of vanilla in there as well. The white green grape notes that I was talking about, maybe a little touch of a lemon limey note, some grassiness to it as well. But overall, it comes across really nice. So this one is the Amphora from Boulevard Brewing Company in Kansas City, Missouri over in America. Let's go. That's good. This is one of the more kind of mellow sours that I've had this time. I mean, it's quite, it's very smooth. This is probably the smoothest one, but you can tell that it's big and boozy. I really like this one. I like sours like this that are nice and big and boozy. So again, middle of your palate, the woodiness comes out there, the oakiness is very, very smooth in this one, and that kind of dominates the middle of the palate. You get a little bit of vanilla as you go further forward on the tongue too, but really around the edge of the tongue you've got the grassiness there, but the nice grapey notes. They're quite oily in this one for me. And that's really what defines the beer, is the big oily qualities of those sort of white, green, grapey grapes that you get out of this. This is lovely. I mean, big thumbs up to Boulevard Brewing Company for this one, and thank you to Simon for the recommendation. So yeah, if you get the chance to try this, have a go at it. A lovely, big, smooth, boozy sour beer. Yeah. So if you like your big vinous and woody sours, this is one that's going to suit you down to the ground. Overall, I would say that this one's got a lovely big oily mouthfeel to it. The carbonation's very smooth. It gets a bit drier the further you go into the aftertaste from the grassy notes, and some of the citricy notes start to push their head out a little bit as well. But a beautiful, beautiful beer, and one that you definitely need to try. We'll get Simon in for a little skull, and so you can say hello. My dad's here as well, so thank you for the recommendation, Simon.
My pleasure.
Make sure you check out his friend Craig over at Kent Beer Reviews, my friend as well. But thank you to Craig for kind of getting us in contact, and it's cool to meet you at the festival as well.
You too, mate.
So yeah, we'll leave it at that for this one, and we'll see what else we can find. Skull. Cheers. Right guys, another first for you here then on Rampant Lion Reviews. For this one, we are going to go to Cerveza Granizo, who are from Chile, so the first ever Chilean craft beer review for you here on the channel. This particular beer is called the Quercus, and it's a red ale with rosemary added into it, and it's been aged in red wine barrels for 3 years. So this is crazy. This beer will be absolutely awesome, I think, to try. So, like you can see, lovely sort of mahogany colour this one, little bit of kind of ivory coloured head. You know, to be honest, when it's a red ale, the colour is what you would expect, but it's really you know, it's just unusual, a rosemary beer. So when you smell the aroma of this one, the rosemary jumps right out at you. It's really pungent. Underneath that, you can smell some lovely kind of woody notes. It's really very kind of spicy, this one. There's definitely a little bit of a kind of brown sugary quality in there. You know, definitely some, yeah, on top of the woodiness, some lovely sort of brown sugary notes. It's almost a little bit phenolic, this beer. It's got a little bit of that to it as well, which is very, very interesting. Yeah, the aroma of this one, it's so unusual actually. I really like how this goes together. I mean, this is something that's so unusual, a Chilean rosemary beer. Where else are you going to find that other than a Mikkeller festival, you know? On the fruity side of things, it's got a little bit of a sharp kind of cherry raisiny note, which is interesting. But I don't even know what to make of this. Let's just taste this. This one is so unusual that I just want to actually taste it. So, skull. That's very nice, but really quite unusual. So the rosemary really comes out in the aftertaste. Again, you've got that lovely woody base there. It's a little bit oaky, very smooth, but at the same time it dries out further into the aftertaste. But it's quite, it's really quite, the spiciness comes out towards the front of the tongue. You really get the rosemary on the front of the palate, but it's actually very smooth and not quite as harsh as I was expecting. And that was the main thing. I chose this just because it seemed unusual, you know. I saw the brewery, brewery with a sort of Spanish looking name. Turns out it's from Chile, you know. That's the great thing about coming to these festivals. You find some really unusual stuff. So, lovely bit of sharpness at the front of the palate there. The sourness on this one isn't too harsh. As you go further into the aftertaste, you start to get a little bit of an almost phenolic kind of quality out of it. but really it's dominated by that kind of herbal, spicy thing. You get some of the red wine vinessy qualities towards the front of the tongue. The wood comes across as a little bit spicy because of the rosemary. This is just a really interesting combination of flavours. There's absolutely no beer that I can think of that I can compare this to, and you know, that's what you want when you're reviewing 2,000 odd beers. You want things that are a little bit unique. So yeah, there's not much more that I can say about this particular one other than try it for yourself and see what you think. A little bit phenolic, very spicy, particularly at the front of the palate, and a nice kind of smooth, woody backbone to it. A little bit of grassiness around the edge of the tongue, a little bit of earthiness from the hops at the back corners of the palate, fruitiness, as I say. There's a little bit of a sharpness to this one when you take it in, but it's quite citricy, it's not juicy and fruity. Mouthfeel wise, this is kind of mid-body, it's got an oily feel to it, carbonation's a bit crisp, bitterness, this actually has a little bit of it because of the spice, but I don't know if you can count that as IBUs, so this beer to me does come across as a little bit bitter. Smooth, a little bit sweet in the middle of the palate, but otherwise, you know, quite dry, not really fruity at all, but a really interesting one this. The Cuecas from Cerveceria, brewery name's going right out of my head now, but awesome to try my first Chilean craft beer. Let's leave it at that for this one and we'll see what else we can find. Skål, salud. Right guys, so another tasting for you then. We're going to go to Belgium for this one. We're having a look at a kind of classic brewery, but a beer that's been brewed specifically for the festival. So, this is Richard. He's been subscribed to my channel for ages. And this is Aaron, who is the head brewer for Mikkeller Baghaven. So, cool people to bump into. So, the one we're going to have a little taste of is the Tenji. Is it Tenji it's called? Shempi, which is a tangerine lambic from Hood Beer Cell in Belgium, a very famous brewery. So as you can see with this one, lovely, bright, kind of, it's a mix between amber and kind of straw golden, I think. It's somewhere in the middle of there. So nothing surprising about this one when you can't get the camera angle right. Nothing surprising about this one when you consider when you consider what style it is, but it's very nice. Aroma.
You said it's tangerine, but yes, exactly. There's a special thing to it.
I think this is very mild compared to some other ones in terms of its aroma. You've got a little bit of that woodiness there. There's some vanilla. You do pick up some of the slightly sharper tangerine. But I think compared to other ones, you know, the cherries and the raspberry beers that you have, and this one is quite mild, I think, in terms of its aroma.
Yeah, it's a 2-year-old lambic, and they're doing these infusions now, which are different than like cherry or fruited beers, right? Because it doesn't require long maceration time. Just infusing the lambic flavors of whatever you're doing. So it's kind of different than what we would call like fruited, right? And he's doing a whole series of these different infusions with stuff that doesn't require like long maceration. A lot of teas, the teas are, I think, excellent. That was just.
Yeah, oh, I'll taste it now. That's lovely. This is a really straight up. I find this beer very straight up, but I think that's what it's intended as. It's a festival beer. It is supposed to. I always find the festival beers are supposed to be enjoyed. You know, they're not the biggest punchy and complex things, but for me, the sour beers all balance. How you get those? It's technically balanced. Yeah, I mean it's awesome. I mean, there's make no mistake about that. When we're saying these beers are balanced and they're not the most punchy, it's awesome. It really is. And this one's brewed exclusively for this festival, the first Mikkeller Baghaven Sour Festival. So,
wild ale celebration.
Wild ale, yeah, sorry.
It's very important that we don't put the emphasis on the sour because, as you said, the idea behind these beers and the concept of the festival is balance. It's kind of the word of the day. So I would say that balance is important.
Yeah. this?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, no, there's a few different.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I've had money. I'm slowing the pace down.
Yeah. Oh, it's all good, man. But yeah, thank you to Aaron for joining. Nice to see Richard again. And yeah, this one was the Machine Tangerine from Good Beer Cell. And Belgium, one of the classic breweries. Lovely, well balanced, smooth lambic, tangerines, nice and oily. That's 6.8%, quite a nice easy drink. So, yeah, cool. Let's leave it at that. Cheers. Right guys, next tasting then. So this beer comes to you from False Barrel Brewery, who are from Berkeley, over in California on the west coast of the States, and it's called False Fruit, and it's made with lots of different spices and things, cardamom, and a few other random bits and bobs. I'm not sure exactly how this beer is going to turn out, but Simon, that you saw earlier, was telling me this one is really, really very nice. So he knows his stuff, we'll go with that. So as you can see in terms of colour, this one's a lovely kind of pale amber. No, it appears a little bit richer in its colour on the camera, as I can see, but it's actually very light and almost peachy in terms of its colour. Nice kind of ivory head, but overall it looks really quite nice. So let's have a little look at this one and see how we get on. So we'll have a look at the aroma here. Straight away, lots of different spicy notes. The cardamom really comes out quite a lot. It reminds me of marzipan, which is something I've never actually liked, to be honest with you, but the aroma really reminds me a little bit of marzipan. It almost smells a little bit like rosemary-ish or something like that, as we encountered the rosemary beer from the Chilean brewery earlier. That was really interesting. A little bit of coriander. You can smell some of the woodiness underneath. It's almost got a little bit of a medicinal type quality to it as well, some sharper fruity notes too. A little bit of grassiness, woodiness in there obviously, a wee bit of earthiness. I really have no idea what to expect from this one, so let's just taste it. This is the False Fruit from Rare Barrel Brewery in Berkeley, California. Skull. That's really sharp when you take it in. It actually smooths out really nicely. I mean, the woodiness blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, you definitely get the cardamom. For me, it becomes a little bit marzipan-y and smooth and sweet in the middle of your palate too. There's a little bit of vanilla towards the front of the tongue as well. It works. I'd be really curious to know what all the spices are in it. Simon was saying that the guy told him, but it wasn't actually written on the sort of ticket thing that they had. But yeah, I mean, it was really it's a really interesting beer. That, you know, spiced beers are always, they can either be very, very good or they can be very, very bad, and this one is really very nice actually. It's all about the smoothness and the blend of flavours, and it works really well. But when you take it in, the sourness is quite sharp, quite puckering. On the hoppy side of things, I mean, you get a little bit of earthiness in the back of the palate, a little bit of grassiness too. The fruitiness in this is very, very citric. It's really quite lemony. I don't know what else to compare it to actually, but the beer, in some ways it reminds me of some of these chili stouts you can get. You do get a little bit of warmth out of the chest in this, but to be honest, this is one of these ones where there's nothing that I've come across you can really compare this to. It's just very smooth, lovely and spicy, and a really very interesting beer. Mouthfeel wise, quite a wet mouthfeel, oils up a little bit later on, really kind of tart and puckering in the beginning, smooths out nicely, it dries out in the middle of your palate because of the kind of spiciness, but you do get some nice citricy notes out of it later on. As I say, for me it really leans towards the lemony side of things, and that offers a kind of contrast to the spicy notes, but overall a really interesting beer, this one. So yeah, the False Fruit from Rare Barrel over in Berkeley, California, America. Let's see what else we can find. Let's go. Right guys, so next one then. We're going to go to Oxbow Brewery this time, who are from Maine in New England in America. Very good beer state these days actually, and hopefully after this summer you will see some more Maine beer reviews on the channel. So this one is the Punch Brook from Oxbow Brewing, comes in at 4.5% ABV, and this one is a raspberry wild ale they're calling it. So as I've said to you in some of the other tastings, I really enjoy my raspberry wild ales. As you'd expect from this one in terms of its colour, a lovely kind of bright rich red. You know, that's exactly what you'd expect. The head on this one is kind of ivory coloured, fades away to be a very light kind of foamy layer, a little bit hazy. I mean, overall it's really, really nice looking beer, I have to say. Aroma wise, straight away, like really juicy. This is a really kind of juicy, hazy, you know, really sort of juicy kind of sour beer. Not the most kind of tart I've come across in terms of the aroma, but you know, it really strikes me, as I've said to you, I love raspberry sours, and this just comes across as so juicy. The oaky woodiness comes out of this beautifully, nice vanilla notes in there. A lot of these beers, I feel I'm saying with these tastings, it's the same thing, but you know, it's all about the aging and the wood and how the wood, the oak, the vanilla, all of these kind of things. It's all about how it blends together with the juiciness of the fruit. And I've got a feeling that this one will be really good. Simon recommended Oxbow Brewery to me, and that's the main reason I went for this one. And I like raspberry sours too, so yeah. Lovely, juicy, fruity notes from this one. It's got a little bit of that vanilla, kind of almost lactosey kind of note to it as well. A little bit of grassiness. Maybe a little touch of actually a bit of a sharper floral quality as well, so that's kind of interesting. So yeah, really juicy smelling sour this. So yeah, the from Oxbow Brewing Company, the name of this one's going right out of my head, the Brook, something Brook, from Oxbow Brewing Company in Maine, New England, America. Skull. That's pretty impressive. You will notice with this one, it's quite, it is actually sharper when you take it in than you would expect from the aroma. I was expecting this one to be a lot smoother and sweeter, but it's got quite a bit of that puckering kind of quality in the beginning. But yeah, big puckering quality at the beginning. You get the raspberry, it comes in, it's very, very tart. Then it just smooths out as you go further into the flavour. Middle of your palate again is blanketed with that lovely smooth oaky note. You get some vanilla as you come further forward on it. It's maybe got a little bit of a slightly biscuity, butterscotchy type sweetness to it. In the middle of the palate, around the edge of the front edge of your tongue, definitely some grassy notes. I'm getting some floral quality out of this as well. It has got a little touch of bitterness to it, this one for me, and some of the smooth earthiness in the back corners of the palate too. That's a really nice, quite drinkable sour ale actually. I really like how this one goes together. It's a lot sharper than I was thinking. Yeah. The sourness comes out a little bit more later on. The vanilla, I think, comes out and becomes a bit more prominent later as well. But that's lovely. I really like this. The Punch Brook from Oxbow Brewing Company in Maine, New England in America. Mouthfeel wise, a little bit lighter bodied than some of the other ones I had. Mainly a wet mouthfeel, quite crisp. I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe been a bit of Pilsner malt in this at one point. It really has a little bit of that crispness towards the back of the palate. Bitterness, really not too much to this one, but really smooth, quite puckering. If you like your beers sour, this one reminds me a little bit more of the likes of the things you'll find from Cascade or in America. This one really strikes me as more of an American wild ale or an American sour beer, however you want to term it. But lovely stuff, and I definitely need to explore Oxbow Brewing Company a little bit more. Let's leave it at that for this one. A lovely raspberry sour beer at 4.5%. The Punch Brook, if I remember the name correctly, from Oxbow Brewing Company in Maine, New England. Skull. Right guys, next one then. So this is the Honey I Love You, a honey saison from Tired Hands Brewing Company in Pennsylvania, in America. Big shout out to my good friend Paul Romeli at PA Brew News. I've known him since not long after I started the channel actually, which is pretty crazy. But I'm sure he's reviewed a good number of the Tired Hands beers, and I'm sure you'll find him on the channel at some point, probably around September or so. I do want to do some filming with him when I'm over in America a little bit later on. But this one, Honey I Love You, a honey saison at 4.8%, lovely, slightly hazy, bright gold and yellow colour. The head on this one, kind of creamy rather than perfect white, but in terms of appearance as a saison, this one isn't really surprising. Let's have a look at the aroma and see how we get on. Oh yeah, that's a good blend between sour and sweet actually. So underneath you get that typical bready, yeasty kind of thing, the sort of farmhousey note that you expect of the kind of farmhouse ales. This one, there's a little bit of graininess in there as well, which is nice. Some nice oaky, woody qualities. Not too sweet though, just quite subtle. Definitely some spiciness to the wheat. You can smell the honey kind of mixed into that as well. It's a little bit like honeycomb, and it's a little bit sort of honeycombish. And how do you say? It's like a little bit like a kind of caramel wafer, to be honest. It's a little bit like that. But a beautiful smelling beer, some grassiness in there, a bit of a sharper floral quality as well, little touch of earthiness, really nice aroma. Let's have a taste of this one, my first ever beer from Tired Hands in Pennsylvania, a brewery that do seem to have a very good reputation. Skull. Oh yeah, that's a really interesting blend of flavours. It comes in on the impact, it's got a little bit of that sour quality, some of the citric notes come out, but later in the aftertaste it really smooths out, and it's you know, it smooths out beautifully, and you start to get the sweeter notes out of it, the woodiness. So you can feel in the middle of the palate you've got a lovely kind of you've got a little bit of a kind of smooth woody quality in there. You've got some you've got a lovely little bit of kind of vanilla quality to it as well. And the sort of honey qualities are blended into that. This is just really a very interesting confusion. You get the wheaty underlining, the yeasty qualities in there, and the honey just kind of sits on top of that. This is a lovely beer. When you move further forward on the palate, that's when you get the kind of citricy notes. A little bit of that citric sharpness, some nice grassy notes around the edge of the palate too, a little bit of a floral quality in there, and as you go further into the aftertaste, it really just smooths out, and it's the breadiness that lingers there along with the woodiness. There is a little bit of vanilla in the aftertaste of this one as well, but this is a lovely beer. This is one of these ones that's very smooth, easily drinkable, and the sourness, it's almost goza-like in some of the sourness, just very smooth and very kind of infused, if that makes sense. Mouthfeel wise, mid-bodied, carbonation is very smooth, a little bit of a balance between wet and oily in its mouthfeel. Sourness isn't too puckering, as I said, nice sweetness, bitterness isn't too much. Lovely beer. The Honey I Love You, a honey saison from Tired Hands Brewing Company in Pennsylvania. My first try of one of their beers. Let's leave it at that. Slanjum, Skull, let's see what else we can find. Right guys, time to head back over to the States then. We're going to go to Oregon. We'll have a little look at my first beer from DeGard, and this one is their Creek, which obviously is a cherry sour beer. I think this will be really quite interesting to have a taste of. You know, I've never been the greatest fan of cherries, but I think it's something that I need to be a little bit more open-minded with, and DeGard, they do have a very good reputation, so we'll see how we get on. So as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely kind of that's one of the brighter reds you're going to find. I mean, Creeks are always going to give you this lovely bright colour. The head on this one, it's got a little pink tinge to it, like a sort of pink ivory colour or something like that. But you know, kind of looks exactly as you would expect for a cherry sour beer. So yeah, aroma wise, the cherries in this are really very dark and very juicy. It's got a little bit of that sharpness. To me, this is quite mild in its aroma in terms of the sort of sour qualities. The oakiness is a little bit more damp almost. Not so much vanilla in this one. The woodiness, as I say, is a little bit more damp, which is really interesting. Not the sweetest in terms of its malt base, but I like that about it. This one really leans towards the darker side of the cherries. A little bit of grassiness in there, a wee bit more earthiness as well in my mind. But yeah, the aroma of that is quite interesting. Quite a dark smelling beer for me, this one, compared to some of the other ones. And the dampness of the wood, I think that's really interesting. So yeah, let's have a look at this one and see how we get on. So this one is the Creek from Untappd Brewery in Oregon in America. Skull. Yeah, there's just something about the flavour of this. It's just a little bit darker. Yeah, really nice kind of dark quality to this one. Sorry guys, kind of got interrupted by the speech there to tell us to get out basically. But yeah, this one, the flavour of this is just a little bit darker. The cherries are kind of lovely and dark and juicy. Lovely bit of sharpness to it. Really not so much vanilla to this one. The woodiness is really very kind of nice and smooth. I like how it goes together. The earthiness is a bit more prominent. You've got a bit of floral quality there, some grassiness too. This is a bit of a darker sour beer. I mean, as I say, when it comes to the Northwest American sours, I'm used to them being a bit more puckering than this. This one's a little bit darker and juicier almost. So that's a really interesting perspective with this one, I have to say. Mouthfeel wise, a little bit wet, a little bit oily. Yeah, a little bit wet and more oily, more juiciness to it, like I said, but not the most puckering one that I've come across today. I think that award goes to Oxbow Brewing, but this was, I have to say, this one is really very nice. So yeah, thumbs up once again to the brewers for this. This is really lovely. Untappd Brewery in Oregon over in America. Make sure you check them out. This is another brewery that I'm going to keep an eye on. Let's go. They're Creek at 4.8%. Alright guys, so final tasting then here at the Mikkeller Wild Ale Celebration, Mikkeller Baghaven Wild Ale Celebration. And I found Johnny Garrett from the Craft Beer channel inside, and we thought we'd do a little bit of filming together.
Absolutely. When in Rome. Copenhagen.
When in Rome, why not? Reflesnoen or something? I didn't
try to pronounce that place.
The thing is, I mean, I've learned Swedish for years, but you can read Danish, you can't pronounce it. You just have to get used to that fact. You're never going to
get it right.
You're never going to be able to pronounce Danish, and I think probably the Danish people watching will agree to that.
Right.
But yeah, we thought since it was a Mikkeller beer festival that we would have a go at one of their beers, and I was recommended that we try the Spontan Triple Raspberry, which, if I remember correctly, comes in at 9.1%, but I think at this point the alcohol content doesn't matter too much. But yeah, so as you can see with this one, it's a lovely kind of, what would you say, that's a sort of, it's like a very dark sort of cherry rosewood, cherry wood.
That's how you want your Ribena, that colour. Just a little bit darker than it should be.
That's a good way to describe it, yeah. So yeah, Ribena, I don't know how that translates. I don't know if we get Ribena in Scandinavia actually, but yeah, Ribena is a sort of black currant drink that we always used to get in our lunch boxes in Scotland and England and stuff like this. I could go with that. I could definitely go with a bit of Ribena. Lovely kind of. That's one of the more dark kind of purplish. Purplish kind of strawberry.
Strawberry colour.
Strawberry kind of colour. Yeah. But yeah, to be honest, if it's a raspberry sour, not out of the realms of possibility, I don't think. So Aroma.
Raspberry jam.
Oh yeah, I get a good bit of vanilla and oakiness out of that too. Like underneath, it's really. I mean, I've said this in all my videos today. It's all about the smoothness and how you can blend the fruitiness and the sourness with the smoothness. And to me, this one comes across as being really nicely balanced. Keyword of the day.
It's been lots of, no disrespect, like
not as a full, lots of acetic going on, lots of vinegariness, and this one is all jam, bit of lactic, tiny hint of Brett. I guess it's Boone Lambic, which will not be very acetic at all unless they've fucked up the barrels. So it's a nice rounded aroma.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when the sours go wrong, you get that sort of harsher vinegary quality, but if you can get the smoothness and the woodiness from the vanilla out, that's when you're on to your A game, I think. Yeah.
Using Belgian Lambic where they know all the issues of the oxidation, the surface area, this kind of stuff, they'll make it round.
That's it, yeah. To me, it's got a bit of grassiness too. I mean, at this point, when it's aged that much, the hops are going to drop out, but I still get a little bit of grassiness out of it.
Yeah, it could be like the Ace hops, or it could be sometimes you get some real moorishness from like the pips, particularly with cherry beers. You can get a very savoury kind of character from them, almondy savoury kind of thing, maybe raspberry pip kind of.
Yeah, no, there is definitely a nutty element in there as well, I think. Yeah, but I mean, safe to say the aroma is lovely, very very smooth. I think this is going to be quite special actually, and very cool to bump into Johnny here at
Small world to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. So, Scott, let's have a taste of this one, the Spontan Triple Raspberry.
Woo!
That's got a hell of a kick to it.
That's massive.
Yeah, that's
really tangy.
Yeah, you know, there's a hell of a lot of a puckering quality to that in the beginning.
Loads of tannins.
But I mean, it smooths out beautifully though. I think definitely, the woodiness. I'm getting a lot of wood, the oakiness at the back of the palate, and then vanilla at the front. That's really what's striking me, and then the tartness is really just, it comes in, juices out a little bit, kind of oils up, and then it gets even sharper at the back end.
Yeah.
I think that's how it goes with this one.
Definitely that, yeah. Sweet on the tip, nice and balanced on the middle, and then like blistering sourness.
Oh yeah.
Like really fresh raspberry flesh on the back.
Yeah.
It's still going. I'm still salivating.
Oh yeah, this one is one that really moistens the mouth. I have to say that. It's I mean, I think we can both agree it's a beautiful beer. That's a really well done sour. I've never actually tried any of the Spontans from Mikkeller before, so this is a nice introduction.
It's a bit, I mean, I was going to say it's a big introduction. It's not even the biggest they do. They do a quadruple version as well, which at that point that's a smoothie to me. But this is just on the smoothie side, but nicely done.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The quad ones are like viscous. This is.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the mouthfeel. I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful beer. It's more leaning towards it's not as oily as some of the ones I've tried today. It's kind of in that borderline between wet and oily, I think. But to me, the woodiness in this again, the oaky quality is very smooth. Vanilla comes out towards the front of the palate. I think this dries out a little bit into the aftertaste as well.
Yeah, I mean raspberries are good for that. There's not a huge amount of sugar in them. They're very tannic and sour anyway. So where with some other fruits you might get a lingering sweetness that isn't necessarily fermented out, with this one it's all gone. It's all tannic and sourness.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this has to be one of the kind of losing the camera here. Even stuttering now.
I could take it over for a bit.
That might be handy.
There we go.
Yeah.
He's taking a rest.
There we go. So yeah, this one for me is the smoothness on the edge of the palate too that's lovely, and that finds a really good balance, I think, with the woodiness and things. But the sourness, I think for me, very sour at the front of the palate, the back of the palate very smooth, and everything else. But it is a kick. This beer is definitely a kick in the gonads.
I was going to say my partner Brad on the Craft Beer channel will very much say it's a slap and a tickle. It punches you in the mouth, and then it's like, but it's going to be okay. Oh
yeah, I like that. It's got a lovely transition to it, this beer. And I mean, if you get that transition right with sour beers, you're on the right track, definitely. So yeah, lovely smooth woodiness in the middle of the palate. I think there's almost a bit of a butterscotchy kind of diacetyl thing that develops, but that might be. It's very subtle. That I think that's maybe the power of suggestion that might get that, but.
Yeah, which you often get in cherry beers in particular, where you kind of start thinking it's Bakewell-esque. With raspberry, maybe it's a similar thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
jammy Dodger thing.
Yeah, raspberries are a little bit like that for me, because obviously our desserts in Scotland, like Cranachan and stuff, very raspberry based. So the raspberry sours always, were a little bit like nostalgic for me, But yeah, definitely has a little bit of that butterscotchy type quality to it. yeah, it's lovely. Like the way the middle of the palate goes together is very nice. Teeny bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate, very smooth along the sides. I get a little bit of grassiness on the very front edge of the palate, but you know, it's probably aged for at least a year. Most of the hops are going to drop out, and I think with these types of beers they use old hops anyway, like old Belgian hops.
Yeah, well, I'd imagine that they won't have used a young Rampant, so the hops would have been 2 years old from the point they were added, and 5 years old before that, so these are 7-year-old hops probably we're talking about.
Oh yeah, and that you can tell that, but it works really well. I mean, if you put in new hops, it just overpower it. But yeah, last bit then, mouthfeel. I would say this one, it's kind of at that border between mid-bodied and full-bodied, like high end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. I think definitely some oily character, but not as oily as some of the other ones you're going to get. A little bit, I find this one, it's got a teeny bit of crispness as well. Do you reckon? I think it's got a teeny little bit of that.
A Christmas mouthfeel or a Christmas flavour?
No, crispiness, sorry.
Oh, crispiness!
Crispiness.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. I'll take over again. It's sore, this holding the phone.
Oh, yeah, crispiness. It's, I don't know, it's an assault on the senses. It could be, it's one of those things where you could deconstruct to infinity because it's got everything going on. It's like, it's dry so it feels crisp, but it's incredibly sour so you don't get the crispness until right at the end. A hugely complex beer, and I think people are quite cynical about these more smoothie style sours, but when they're done with lambic you get the depth. When they're done with a kettle sour it can be a little bit just like fruit jam.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, but yeah, beautiful beer on this. I think we're agreed on that. I think one of the things that's kind of interesting is when you get two beer tubers together, I describe things in a very different way from you, and it's I'm probably learning a little bit. Like I remember Peter Master the Hoppets describing was it Denali hop as being like minty, and I always remembered that. And interesting, you're talking different in a different manner about the sours and stuff. So I need to watch some more of your sour reviews and look at that. So yeah, and I mean that's what it's all about. It's all about learning about beer and things like this. And yeah, this has been pretty cool to try this one, and definitely cool to have our first mate. This is the very first time I met Johnny as well. So yeah, if you're watching my channel and you haven't looked at Johnny's before, definitely go and have a look at it.
Craft beer channel.
The craft beer channel. My favourite video I think I've seen so far was, I really like the one on the Vienna lagers, because you were talking about the weird history of
trying
Vienna
to find
lagers.
the fuckers in Vienna. Yeah, that wasn't easy to do.
I was really surprised about that, and I also like the ones about beer terminology that have come out quite recently. This is February 2020, and I think middle of January.
Yeah, about 2-3 weeks ago from now.
Yeah, so those were released. Check those out. Check out Johnny's channel, and hopefully you can see him again at some point in the future. We need to connect on Facebook and see what festivals and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. And thanks for watching.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. Hope you've enjoyed our review. The triple raspberry spontan from Mikkeller, and this is a good way to sign off from Mikkeller Baghaven Wild Ale Celebration. Catch you guys very soon. I'll give you my final thoughts on the festival, and that'll be the end of the video. Skull. Right guys, next one then. This one is the Buckwheat from Plan B Brewery, who are from Poughkeepsie in New York. So this I think will be a really interesting one. Buckwheat, of course, is this really kind of dark berry. It's got a very, very interesting flavour. Apparently this is aged in a rye whiskey barrel as well, which should be really interesting. It comes in at 6.8%. This is my first encounter with Plan B Brewery, so let's see how we get on. You can see this one's almost the same colour as like a black IPA or something like that. You know, the colour of this is really very dark. If you shine it to the light, it comes across as a little bit more kind of ruby-ish. The colour of the head is quite ivory, sort of creamy-ish. One or two big bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head. But you know, overall, looks very nice. Aroma-wise, the woodiness in this comes across as kind of quite spicy. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of rye, brown bready quality to it as well. The smoothness in this is really nice. It's definitely got brown bready notes, as I say. A little bit of a kind of toasty, caramelly brown sugar. A little bit of an almost biscuity quality as well, which is really interesting. Wee touch of earthiness, a little bit of grassiness in there. Not too much in the way of sourness though. It almost comes across as mainly toasted, this beer, in terms of its aroma profile. But quite juicy at the same time. Let's have a taste of this and see how we get on. This one is the Buckwheat at 6.8% from Plan B Brewery in Poughkeepsie, New York. Let's go. That's really nice, actually. The woodiness in this obviously forms the backbone. It's got a little bit of a kind of toasted, bread crusty note to it as well. This one isn't a sour beer in the traditional sense almost. There's a little bit of that in there. It's more like a kind of fruit beer. But brown bready notes across the middle of the palate, some well-fired bread crust there as well. Maybe a little bit sweeter towards the centre of the tongue too. A little bit of a kind of toasty caramel in there. Teeny little hint of nuttiness further forward. Dark earthiness in the back corners of the palate. As you come further forward, it smooths out, becomes a little bit more herbal, some grassiness on the front curve of the tongue too. The fruitiness, as I say, it's all buckwheat and it's a very unique flavour. It's got a little bit more sharpness to it than, say, a blackberry, but other than that, the juiciness is quite similar for me. It's almost like a slightly sharp blackberry buckwheat, to be honest with you. But the breadiness and the woodiness and the sort of bread crusty qualities you get out of this beer are what make it really stand out for me. But yeah, I really like that. That's one of the most curious beers, or one of the most quirky beers I should say, I've tried today. You can tell the booze is starting to go to my head on this one. The cold is getting to me as well with this festival. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, generally a very smooth beer. Bitterness, 20 IBUs at absolute most. Lovely blend between smoothness and toastiness in the malt base. Little touch of fruitiness as well, but mainly this is quite a smooth and nice drinkable beer. The Buckwheat from Plan B Brewery in Poughkeepsie, New York. One of the more quirky ones I've tried today, but the quality of beer here generally is very, very high, so let's leave it at that. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Right guys, I realised at the Sour Beer Festival yesterday I forgot to film a little end bit of the video, so yeah, I thought I would do it now. So I'm sitting in Copenhagen Airport at Mikkeller's bar in here, and I have the airport spontan, so I thought I'll have a taste of this one, give you my thoughts on the festival. So yeah, with this one you can see it's poured a nice kind of hazy sort of gold colour. It's got a little bit of an amber tinge to it. It looks a bit brighter on the camera, this one, than it actually is, but it comes in at 6.2%, and yeah, not sure exactly what to expect of this one, but you can see lovely clear looking beer. Let's look at the aroma and see how we do. Oh yeah, this one really kind of vinous, like white wine grapes and stuff. This is kind of really very sharp. Underneath that you can get some of the oaky notes out of it. It's a little bit spicy as well, which is interesting. You've got a little bit of that kind of vinegary note that you can get sometimes in these sour beers. It's got a little bit of that, but to me it comes across really sort of apple-like, peary-like. It's got a little bit of that kind of sharpness to it, which is really quite interesting. But yeah, it's quite sharp and tangy, as I say, apples, pears, a little bit of that white wine, green white grape sort of thing. It's got a little bit of grassiness to it as well, which is interesting. I don't know if this one will have some hops in it or not, but yeah, the aroma of this one's quite interesting. Underneath, as I say, the oaky wood comes out. Not getting so much of vanilla from this one, but you have a little bit of a kind of caramel, not so much caramel, but more of a biscuity note to it as well. But yeah, the airport spontan. Let's have a look at this. Let's go. Again, it's pretty solid, I have to say. As I've always said, and I was saying through in all those tastings yesterday, the whole thing for me with a sour beer is that you need to get the transition from the sharpness in the beginning to the smoothness nicely. And again, this one has that. Mikkeller have done sour beers for quite a long time, and they're pretty good at it now. I mean, Baghaven, creating Baghaven, obviously, it's a hell of an infrastructure project for them, but you know, I can see why they did it. I mean, this really is pretty damn solid, I have to say, and this isn't even one of their more kind of special sour beers, if you like, but it really is very nice. So, middle of your palate, You get that nice kind of oaky woody thing, blanket in the middle of your tongue. It's a little bit smoother and sweeter in the middle of the palate too, a little bit of a kind of biscuity quality there too. As you go further forward, wee hint of vanilla. Not too much actually, it's just got a little bit of that nice kind of vanilla quality to it as well. But yeah, it's really nice and really smooth, and the way the sourness kind of develops in this is very nice too. So back corners of your palate, teeny bit of earthiness. As you come further forward, it really just smooths out, a little bit herbal almost. Round the front curve of your palate, a little bit lighter and grassy. As I say, I'm not sure whether there's hops in this. I suspect there might be old hops in this, like Belgian hops perhaps. I know that that's quite a common thing to do in sours. I need to study the brewing process of these a little bit more right enough, but the sourness of this, it's quite sharp in the beginning and then it just mellows out really nicely. So yeah, when you take this in, it comes, you know, you really get a nice little bit of tartness there. It really is quite like appley and peary, this one. It's got a little bit of a sort of lemony citric quality to it as well, but that comes in and it just smooths out really nicely as you go further into that aftertaste. And then I think the woodiness and the kind of vanilla flavours kind of start to come out a little bit as well. But yeah, the grassiness, you do get a little bit of that kind of lemony floral grassiness around the front curve of the tongue too. So for me, this is quite a nice fresh, summery sour beer actually. This one's pretty kind of solid and straight up. It's a nice sort of introduction to sour beers, if you like. In terms of the mouthfeel, I would say, you know, for a sour beer, fairly mid-bodied, as I've told you before. I've always found sour beers to be a bit lighter in their mouthfeel than IPAs and all this kind of thing. But this one is it's a little bit more oily. I find the mouthfeel of this overall like quite oily and things, but I like how that goes together. For me, bitterness wise, I think you'd be lucky to get about 15-20 IBUs out of this one. You've got you know, you've maybe got a little bit of sweetness to this in the middle of the palate. It's got a little bit of that butterscotchy thing that develops too, but a little bit of hoppy bitterness as well. And you know, it's just a really nice kind of solid straight up sour beer, this one, mid-bodied, easy to drink, and that's what you want. So yeah, there's your little tasting note of the Mikkeller Airport Spontan. So just to give you my final thoughts on the Mikkeller Baghaven sour beer celebration yesterday, it was a nice festival. I thought the venue was a little bit too small. I mean, it was kind of a case of you know, people were just standing in awkward places and stuff, so it was really difficult to kind of get around, and I think that just came because the venue was too small. There wasn't enough seating. It might actually be better to host it at a different time in the year when the weather's a little bit better. You know, if they hosted that in, say, April or something, when we're starting to get the nicer weather, that would be one of my recommendations for it. Other than that, I would say, you know, the ticket price, I mean, you get as much beer as you can drink, but you know, maybe 500 Danish crowns is a little bit pricey. That is one of the things, and when you're only getting little small things as well, sour beer, granted it does cost a little bit more. I would say that it was a little bit pricey for what it was in some ways, but in terms of the quality of beer, and I think that's what we should focus on the positives. The quality of beer that was there was really pretty damn good, I have to say. I mean, tried my first beer from Argentina, my first beer from Chile as well. You know, really cool to find that there's specialist sour beer breweries in South America. You know, I need to explore the South American craft beer scene a little bit more on the channel. That's something I'd really love to do. You had some interesting breweries as well from across the States. I got to try some really interesting sour beer breweries from like Oregon and California and other places, Maine as well. I got to try some of the Tired Hands stuff, which was really interesting. So, you know, some really good American breweries there as well. I didn't get to try so many of the Belgian classics because, you know, they're a little bit easier to come across, and being in the sort of Skåne, Copenhagen area, it's quite easy to access Belgium, so I did tend to focus more on the American beers, but the selection of stuff that was available was great. and there was some really nice beers, and Mikkeller Baghaven did some of their own stuff too. So for me, this one was a really interesting beer festival. I felt it could have been held at a better time in the year, say April or maybe, you know, September or something. You want the weather to be a bit better so they can put more seating outside and things. Venue could have been a little bit bigger. It was a touch pricey, but in terms of the beer itself, you know, there was a good selection there. Breweries from all across the world, which was really nice, and you know, it's definitely worth trying. One brewery I was surprised that wasn't there was Wild Wave from Korea. They've got some really awesome sour beers as well, but maybe you might see them at some point in the future. You know, there'll be some different festivals there. This is only the first year they've done it, so you have to bear that in mind as well. These little minor complaints that I have about venue and things might be fixed further down the line, but there was still tickets available on the day, so it didn't sell as much as you know, the regular Mikkeller beer celebration. But yeah, an interesting festival, and I was glad that I was able to go to that too. It was nice to meet up with people, you know, Johnny from the Craft Beer channel, Simon, who's a good friend of Craig at Kent Beer Reviews. It was great to meet up with him. I got to meet Richard, who's been a long-term subscriber, haven't seen him for a while, and also Aaron, who's the head blender guy at Mikkeller Baghaven too. So that was really nice. Nice to have another beer festival with my dad, and yeah, I enjoyed it. Overall, I really enjoyed it. The beer was good. As I say, hopefully the little minor things they can fix in the future. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. It was cool to come and sort of sign off here at Copenhagen Airport with the Airport Spontan, another sour beer to sign off this video. But I hope you've enjoyed another festival video, and we'll see what festival comes up next. I'm going to go back home to Scotland for a week, sort out the little one's paperwork and stuff, and maybe you'll see some Scottish beer reviews as well. But let's leave it for that just now, and I'll catch you guys very soon. This one was the Mikkeller Baghaven Sour Beer Celebration video 2020. Catch you guys soon. Thanks for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Sláinte, skål, cheers.